Running errands at Target has always been mundane and routine for me. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd find myself living out a nightmare inside my local store. But now I know evil can lurk anywhere, even in the most commonplace of locations. It started off as an ordinary Sunday. I woke up late and headed to Target around noon to grab some household items. The store wasn't too crowded, and I wandered the aisles undisturbed, grabbing what I needed. I noticed a few times a man who seemed to be aimlessly wandering like me, but thought nothing of it. People of all types come to Target. However, I started to feel uneasy when I noticed him again in the toothbrush aisle as I perused options. He wasn't looking at toothbrushes, just lingering nearby pretending to examine a display of dental floss. I wrote it off as coincidence, but still quickly grabbed a toothbrush pack and moved on. In the shampoo section a short time later, I spotted him again from the corner of my eye one aisle over. He appeared to just be browsing bottles, but my senses were on alert now. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, but couldn't shake the creepy feeling that had settled in my gut. I started taking random turns down different aisles, looking for one where he wouldn't follow. But every time I'd emerge from an aisle, I'd catch a glimpse of him at the end of the next row over, always keeping his distance, never approaching me, but tracking my every movement. My heart started racing faster, and I abandoned my cart to bolt toward the front of the store. I had to find an employee, security, anyone who could help. But when I reached the registers, the store seemed strangely understaffed. Only a few cashiers stood at their posts, completely oblivious to my plight. I made a beeline for the guest services counter, where I was relieved to spot a manager speaking with another customer. But just as I tried to interrupt them, pleading breathlessly for help, I felt that chilling sensation of being watched. I slowly turned to see the man at the end of an aisle, staring at me intently from afar. The manager looked where I gestured in alarm, but saw nothing. When I whipped my head back, the man had vanished again. The manager tried to call me, assuring me I was safe at Target, but I knew my terror was real. This man was stalking me. I realized then that I had to take matters into my own hands. I refused the manager's offer to walk me to my car. After what I had already endured, I would feel safer on my own than with a naive Target employee. As I pretended to exit the store, I doubled back to grab supplies for my plan. First, I raided the sporting goods section for a baseball bat. Then the automotive aisle for blind spot mirrors to stick on the cart. I attached them strategically to give me 360-degree visibility as I pushed the cart ahead of me through the store like a shield. Finally, I stopped by electronics for a SpyFinder Pro hidden camera detector. If this creep thought he could follow me undetected, he had another thing coming. Decked out in my makeshift surveillance gear, I steeled myself for the hunt to come. The hunter would now become the hunted. As I patrolled each aisle slowly with my cart, watching every angle, a sense of empowerment grew within me. Just let him try to stalk me now. If he showed his face, I'd be ready. After 2 sweepings of all the aisles produced nothing, I started to worry he may have slipped out while I was preparing. Could I have scared him off? But just as I began to lower my guard, the SpyFinder Pro lit up, detecting a camera nearby. I glanced sharply to my right to spot a tiny hidden lens peeking at me from the overhead shelf. Boom. Gotcha. With adrenaline flooding my veins, I used the shelves to scale the inside of the aisle, reaching up to rip the tiny camera off its perch. This sicko had been watching me the whole time. As I crushed the device beneath my shoe, a scream rang out behind me. I whirled around to see a terrified woman pointing my way. She shrieked that I had a bat and was destroying store property. Within moments, 2 security guards were upon me, demanding I hand over my cart while curious customers looked on. I tried to explain it was self-defense, that I was being stalked and had found proof. But the guards found only my makeshift surveillance gear and a crushed, unrecognizable device on the floor. The scene looked deranged and paranoid to onlookers. As the guards escorted me forcibly from the store, I glanced back in desperation, and there he was, the man, watching from a distance as I was removed. His face was blank, but his eyes said it all. He had won this round. But I will be back. Next time I'll be more careful, more cunning. I won't stop until I have exposed what evil lurks within those cheery Target aisles. Because now I know monsters walk not only in dark alleys, but in the bright fluorescent lights of our most familiar places. And I refuse to live in fear of where they might be hiding. I never should have gone to Target that night. If I had just stayed home, none of this would have happened. But I needed to pick up a few things, so I decided to run to the store really quick after work. As soon as I walked in, I felt uneasy. The store was practically empty, even though it was only 8 p.m. I tried to shake off the feeling as I grabbed a cart and started shopping. I went up and down the aisles, grabbing the items on my list. All the while, I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. Every time I turned a corner or looked over my shoulder, I thought I saw someone lurking behind me. But when I spun around to look, no one was there. You're being paranoid, I told myself. It's just a quiet night at Target. Stop psyching yourself out. I checked out, and the cashier gave me a strange look as she rang up my items. I chalked it up to me being jittery and headed out to the parking lot. As I approached my car, I realized the lot was nearly empty now. How long had I been in the store? As I fumbled for my keys, I heard footsteps behind me. I whirled around, but no one was there. Heart pounding, I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and sped out of the parking lot. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting someone to be following me. But the road behind me remained empty. When I got home, I triple-checked that all my doors were locked before settling in for the night. Sleep did not come easy as I lay awake, replaying the incidents from Target in my head. You're losing it, I told myself. There was no one following you. The next night, after tossing and turning most of the day, I finally fell into a restless sleep. I woke with a start a few hours later, thinking I heard footsteps in my house. I grabbed the baseball bat that I keep by my bed and carefully searched every room, but there was nothing. Still shaken, I crawled back into bed. As I stared up at the dark ceiling, the power suddenly went out. I froze, listening intently into the pitch-black silence. And then I heard it, the distinct sound of someone walking upstairs. My blood turned to ice in my veins. Someone was in the house. I leapt out of bed wielding the bat, ready to confront whoever had broken in. The intruder darted through the shadows of the upstairs hallway just out of sight. I chased after the figure, yelling that I was armed and they needed to leave immediately. The perpetrator disappeared down the stairs and I raced after them, flipping on lights as I went. But when I reached the bottom floor, it was empty. The front door remained locked and chained. My hands shaking, I cleared every room again, but found nothing disturbed. I collapsed on the couch, bat still gripped tightly in my hands as I tried to make sense of what happened. Maybe a tree branch hitting the house or pipes settling explained the noises. But deep down, I knew someone had been there, watching me. Over the next 2 weeks, the bizarre events continued to escalate. I would constantly see someone following me whenever I left the house, only for them to vanish when I tried to confront them. Strange noises woke me up at all hours of the night, and objects around the house were moved when I knew I hadn't touched them. I hardly slept, terrified that whoever was stalking me would eventually stop toying with me and finally make their move. But the police shrugged off my paranoid stories of footsteps and moving items when they came up empty during a sweep of my home. Finally, one night, as I paced the house wielding my trusty bat, I heard glass shatter upstairs. This was it. My stalker was inside and had run out of patience. With trembling hands, I dialed 911 as I crept upstairs. Furniture had been overturned in my bedroom and shards of the broken window littered the floor, but the room was empty. Then I smelled it. Smoke. I ran to the stairs, but it was too late. Flames licked up the walls, blocking my path. The smoke detector began blaring. My stalker had started a fire to drive me out and was waiting for me outside. I ran back to my bedroom but was trapped. As the room filled with black smoke, I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. This was it. There was no escape. I was going to die at the hands of my unseen tormentor. As my consciousness faded, I coughed and sputtered one final plea for someone, anyone, to help me. But it was useless. My stalker had won. It was just another average Sunday when I decided to head to Target to pick up a few things. I try to avoid going shopping on weekends since the store is always packed, but I was in a pinch and needed to grab some essentials. As I wandered up and down the aisles, nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first. Families scrambled to fill their carts. Teens giggled over makeup products, and the occasional crying child could be heard in the distance. Typical weekend Target chaos. I grabbed what I needed: some groceries, toiletries, and a couple of DVDs that were on sale. I was just about finished when I first noticed him. There was a man, probably in his 40s, average height and build, with messy brown hair. He didn't stand out much except for the fact that he was alone and didn't have a cart or any items. My first thought was that maybe he was just browsing without intent to buy anything. But then I noticed him out of the corner of my eye again in the next aisle over. And again, a couple aisles after that. He never seemed to be looking at any particular products, just wandering aimlessly, always a few paces behind me. I started to feel uneasy, but told myself I was likely just being paranoid. Still though, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The man's constant presence was unnerving. As I made my way to the front to check out, I paused in an aisle to let a group of rowdy teenagers pass. That's when I clearly saw the man duck into a nearby aisle, seeming to purposefully stay out of view, but then peeking around the corner to keep an eye on me. My heart started racing. This couldn't be a coincidence anymore. He was definitely following me. I abandoned my full cart and quickly slipped into the next aisle over, crouching down and watching between shelves to see what the man would do. Sure enough, he came around the corner soon after, looking around confused for where I'd gone. I held my breath as he walked right past me without noticing I was hidden. Once he was a good distance away, I made a beeline for the front of the store. My hands were shaking slightly as I told the cashier I needed to step away for a moment and that I'd be right back for my cart. She gave me a confused look, but nodded politely. I walked towards the bathroom, the only hiding place I could think of. But just as I grabbed the handle on the restroom door, I heard fast approaching footsteps behind me. My stomach dropped. It was him. I didn't turn around or say anything, just slipped into the bathroom, shutting and locking the door behind me. My heart pounded in my ears as I backed into the corner, straining to hear any sounds of movement outside. Had he seen me come in here? Did he know I was hiding from him? Several agonizing minutes passed without any noise outside. I slowly sank down the wall to the floor, hugging my knees to my chest and willing my breathing to steady. Just when I had begun to calm down and think maybe he had given up, I heard the handle on the door suddenly jiggle violently. I slapped my hand over my mouth to hold in a scream. He was trying to get in. The jiggling stopped, followed by an eerie silence. I sat paralyzed, tears now running down my cheeks, praying this nightmare would end. After what felt like forever, I worked up the courage to slowly stand up and look under the stall door. No feet there. Holding my breath, I inched the bathroom door open. No one stood on the other side. The relief I felt was overwhelming. I have no idea where the man went, but he was finally gone. Still glancing nervously around, I hurried back to the front, paid for my items, and rushed to my car. It wasn't until I had driven halfway home that I began to breathe normally again. I still have no clue who that man was or what he wanted, and I don't think I want to know. I've never returned to that Target since. Just thinking about that day gives me chills. No shopping trip is worth going through that terror again. I'm just thankful I made it out of there unharmed, with a chilling reminder to always be aware of my surroundings, even in the most routine public places.